Welcome to the Care Right podcast, your go-to resource for all things elder care. Guiding us through this journey is Annalee Kruger, the founder of Care Right Incorporated, and she has been steadfastly supporting families across the United States. Each episode brings you expert insights, innovative strategies, and practical advice, ensuring that you're well equipped to provide the best possible care for your loved ones. Expect to gain valuable knowledge, learn from real-life stories, and get inspired to take action in your own caregiving journey. So buckle up as we dive into an in-depth discussion of elder care planning and together embrace the journey of caring for aging loved ones on the Care Right podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Annalee Kruger, the owner of Care Right Incorporated. I have attorney Ed Wollman back on the show today. We are excited to talk about a variety of planning and caregiving issues. So Ed, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you, Annalee. So Annalee Kruger and myself have been working together on care management issues and care planning, and she has this aging planning process. And this is a third part of a several-part series on when is it time to have the tough conversation with your family members about really difficult topics: finances, healthcare, where am I going to live? Do you want to go live with the children? Do you want to go live with your in-laws? So it's a really complicated conversation. And the question is, when is it time to plan? As Annalee has said in the last two presentations, unfortunately, she's called in crisis. And I think of her also when the clients have crisis. So basically, what Annalee has proved, creating an aging plan when you're young and healthy, or if you're doing it for your parents now, is the time to do it. So plan now, plan early, plan often is the saying in the planning industry. It's kind of the slogan for the financial planning industry. Mm-hmm. Today, we're going to jump into a couple new topics, but I just want to recap just a little bit. But before I do, I want to go over with you the team of advisors, the team of people that are involved in this collaborative approach. And that is your attorney, your home support, your healthcare consultants, your patient advocate, your CPA, your long-term care insurance and other insurance reps, your physicians, your financial advisor, your trust officer, your family members, your closest, dearest friends. It takes a whole group of people to be able to pull this off. So when you're thinking about a plan, it's not just as simple as, am I going to go live at a nursing home? Am I going to go live at a beautiful assisted living? Am I going to go to a continuum of care independent facility? So Annalee will help you with that planning process. We also talked about how difficult nowadays it is to get long-term care because of the shortage in the industry. There was a shortage before COVID. Now it's just epic, epic proportions, the shortage. And you know that that's true all over the country with all businesses. Try to get even a plumber to come to your house. And then finally, Annalee, just to recap, she has created the Grab and Go binder. It's nothing new. The president has his own football, but the Grab and Go binder, Annalee's going to just hold hers up. There we go. Basically it's inside of it. I'm reading a lot of this, but who are the professionals on your team? Your medical records, your medicine, your allergies, your DNR, your legal documents, your insurance policies, your bank accounts, retirement accounts, passwords, the list of your assets, funeral arrangements, VA benefits, VA documents, and business succession planning documents, just to name a few, and probably photographs of everything in your house and your property and casualty insurance papers. So that Grab and Go binder is a fabulous idea. We as lawyers talk about it. We probably spend 30 seconds. Many of these things, Annalee and her team are going to speak to you more in the neighborhood of hours versus minutes or seconds. And then before we jump in today or at the next session on how do you finance the long-term care, we want to jump into the very, very, very important topic of when is the right time to communicate and what is that process. So Annalee, please take it away.
Well, I will always say, because when I get asked, well, when's the right time to start the conversation, I will always say like last year. right? Because by the time families come to me, they are burned out, they're overwhelmed, and they haven't had any of the conversations that they need to, and that's why they get overwhelmed and don't know what care options are available to them. So when we talk about communication, this tags in with like the grab and go binder. What's cool about the grab and go binder, and you all can create your own, it's just this one's a plug and play. So what's cool about the grab and go binder is each of the 11 tabs, or in the e-binder, each of the 11 headings work as a family agenda item in case you as your own family want to facilitate your own family meetings. At least you would be communicating, okay, kids, this is what I have in place. Here's my doctors. This is who my attorney is. This is who the financial advisor is. This is where the living will and the power of attorney. Here's my accounts and passwords. I can't tell you how many sons and daughters find out during the crisis, like right after the stroke happened, that, oh, I didn't even know I was named the healthcare power of attorney. We've never even had a conversation about what dad wants. Or dad just had a stroke. Son finds out he's listed as the financial power of attorney, but yet there was never any conversation or communication about, okay, Larry, here are the accounts, here's the passwords, these bills come out of this account, this is on the automatic charge. There's not communication, and all of these things could be done proactively so that if or when there's a medical crisis, or in reality, when there's a death, the family's not left trying to figure out, okay, what are the funeral arrangements and how do we notify the financial planner or the attorney when we don't even know who that person is, right? So the key is communicate, 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 and do it now while things are still going well. If things are already tanking for you and your family, or heading south for you and your family, it's still critical to start these conversations now. One of the value adds for CareRight is most families try to have some family meetings about this, but they really don't know what to talk about, because when you don't know what you don't know, how can you talk about it and how can you put a plan in place? There's value in having a neutral third-party person facilitating your family meeting and guiding you along the way, every step of this aging and caregiving and dementia journey.
So Annalee, who attends the meeting? Because one of the questions we get asked all the time as estate planning attorneys, the question is, should I share my estate planning documents with my family now, or should I wait until, if it's a husband and wife, one of us passes away, or if you're single, until later on in life when I have a capacity issue, a long-term care illness diagnosis? So first of all, it's a timing issue, but secondly, it's who gets a seat at that table, because usually the in-laws, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, et cetera, are excluded because theoretically, I hate to say the word, but you'll hear kind of, it's none of their business. But you know what I mean. It's not that it's not their business, it's they're not directly impacted by the immediate decisions, but they're definitely affected by all the decisions. So in large families, very, very, very large families, I know they bring in a psychologist, they bring in the in-laws, because shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves, clogs to clogs. They say in 3 generations, the money's all gone because they're not educated on how to handle the money. And when you don't bring in the outlaws, I mean the in-laws, there tends to be some infighting. So my question to you is, do you bring in outsiders? And secondly, if you do name family members, like my son for the finances, my daughter for the healthcare, the oldest, do you exclude the other ones, the younger ones, or the ones that are just not involved? Or should you bring everybody to the table? It's really kind of complicated because too many cooks in the kitchen spoil the broth.
That's a loaded question, because I'm going to say it depends. It depends on your family dynamics, right? So if your family just can't simply get along, or they can't be in the same room at the same time and be civil to each other, you need to have a professional mediator work with that family. But if you've got, if your son is, because I've had this before, where through the course of the family meetings that I've been facilitating, the son is the financial power he finds out that he's listed as the financial power of attorney. And then he was courageous enough during the family meeting to say, you guys, I don't want to be the financial power of attorney. You don't know this, but I have a gambling addiction. right? And so then the family, it could have went totally a different way. Like, what are you kidding? Like, what's wrong with you? But you know what? They embraced him and they're like, you know what? We're here for you. But yeah, we're taking you off as a financial power of attorney. Right.
Or other stresses in your life that would take you away from having the time. It's very time consuming for a family member to take on these responsibilities.
I don't think families, you don't understand until you're in the throes of it. You don't understand what power of attorney really means. And I have a lot of my sons or daughters, they're power of attorney for 4 or 5 aging loved ones because they've got their parents, they've got their in-laws, and then because of blended families, they've got their step parents. And I always say this isn't Thanksgiving. There's not always room for one more to be the power of attorney, because we know that the average caregiver, the average family caregiver spends 24 hours a week tending
Wow.
one aging parent. And that's coordinating care. That's taking time off work to take them to doctor's appointments. That's going to the grocery store. That's dropping off the gallon of milk. We know that this caregiving thing ends up being a full-time job.
So go back to my question. Do you traditionally exclude or include in-laws?
So I always say it depends, because if the daughter-in-law is the one who's got the brunt of the caregiving, because that's often what happens with sons, they'll say, well, my wife, Mary, she can take you to the doctor's appointments and she can change your Depends and she can set up your meds. Well, maybe that was okay with daughter-in-law Mary in the beginning, but now she's like, look, now it's affecting my time, my relationship. And these daughter-in-laws end up taking care of their in-laws, and they may or may not have liked them in the first place. So that's why it depends on what the family dynamic is. And when I talk with clients, I'm like, okay, so who's all on I call it the care team, like who in the family is all on the care team, who is the most involved, and who's just kind of standing by the sidelines? Because I want the people who are most involved in the family meeting, because what affects one person affects the entire family in one way or another, right?
So let's talk about some of the more difficult aspects of this. But before we do, is this an ever-changing process, or is this a one and done? When you create this extensive plan, which you call the aging plan, correct? Is it a one and done, or is it an evolution?
So it can be a one and done. I mean, our aging plan addresses the current need now, because most of people, unfortunately, are coming to me in crisis. So we have to address the crisis scenario first, and then we back into, okay, got that taken care of, everybody made it out safely and stuff. But now what's the actual plan? So yep, it's clear mom and dad tried it at home. They weren't willing to bring in home care. So if you want to age in place at home, you have to be willing to do certain things to allow that to happen, right? And so our plan is, that's great if you want to age in place at home, but where does it make sense for you to ultimately live if or when it's determined that you can't afford to stay at home, or you decide it's not the right fit? Does it maybe make sense to live closer to where one of your kids can advocate for you easily when you end up going into a long-term care type setting? So that's all through the course of multiple family meetings that we have to make those decisions.
I don't know if you all know about the blue zone, but what we've learned from the blue zone is community is really important. So leaving here and going to assisted living by your children and having your children visit maybe only once a week versus staying here and having your friends visit and being able to go to your church or temple, you've got to really think about what's the environment that will allow you to thrive.
Mm-hmm. And we also, because we incorporate that into our plan. So, for like my Southern clients, because we're both in Florida. And so we have a lot of snowbirds, right? So our plan, we offer and suggest and highly recommend to our clients that we have a plan for down here in Florida, in case you come down from Rhode Island and you have a stroke or your dementia progresses, because it will. Where does it make sense for you to get care here in Florida? But where does it also make sense for you to get care wherever it is you're going to long-term land? And so we're actually doing multiple plans for the here and the now, and also down the road. And the other wrinkle, or it's not a wrinkle, the reality is that we have a lot of blended families. So if you've got Ethel and Marvin, Ethel's going to want to live closer to her kids, and Marvin's going to want to live closer to his kids, right? So that's why we have these family meetings and really sort out, okay, if Ethel passes away first, then it's an easier decision, right? Marvin will move closer to his kids. But what if they both start declining at the same time? And Ethel starts becoming more the primary caregiver. Her kids are likely going to say, look, Marvin, we love you. You're a cool dude, but I'm not letting my mom physically deteriorate because she's going to end up burning out taking care of you, right? So that's why these family meetings are really, really, really critical and really important, because there's a lot of nuances to this whole thing of aging and caregiving that families don't know what they don't know, and they make horribly expensive mistakes, relationship wise, financially, bouncing mom and dad in and out of different facilities because they didn't know what they didn't know.
Yeah, I want to mention just a couple of the critical things that I've seen in my practice just in the last 6 months. Issues with stopping driving. When do you stop driving? Please, please, please give up your keys a couple months before you have to, or you're never going to think it's the right time. Access to check your own checking account, access to your own credit cards, with small limits. So, obviously, if you're in the middle of dementia, you may not want to give up your pride of being able to handle some of your finances. So there's ways to limit that. And the third one, which we've seen a couple of times now, whereas you're either have the beginning of dementia or in the middle of it, but you still have the capacity to get married, and you start making estate planning changes, you get married without a premarital agreement, and it can be quite the nightmare for the family. Any comments on just how to slow that down or protect against that?
So one thing I encourage families to do is, and I have a checklist, I'm all about the checklist for families because it makes it easier when there's a system and it's just clearly organized. So one of the things I provide my families that I work with is the safe driver checklist. And one of the things that families could be doing or should be doing is take a walk around the car. Are there new dings and dents? When's the last time the oil's been changed? Are the tires due to be rotated? Like, who's managing? Like, we have to look at our aging loved ones as they're so complex that everything needs to be managed. Can they take their medications? Are they safe driving? Are they able to maintain their car? Are they able to maintain their house? Are they able to pay their bills? Are they able to coordinate their care? Are they able to process information, or do they need to have an advocate or somebody with them? There's a lot of different things that they need to consider. Especially what you just said now, especially when you go to the doctor and the doctor speaks like lawyers speak. They're speaking in code, yes. And then no matter how competent you are, it's hard to understand what they said, and you probably lose 50% of it the next day and 75% by the third day. And that's true when you're in perfectly great shape and you go to see your attorney or your doctor. So having that advocate with you, a child or a professional outside advocate, becomes essential. It is essential because even during the pandemic, which I don't know if you technically were out of it or not, but a lot of these physicians speak with accents and a mask, and you've got an elderly person who may or may not be wearing their hearing aids, who may or may not be functioning 100% cognitively. They're not going to ask the questions that they need to. The patient isn't going to know what questions to ask, or in this generation, they don't ask questions. They're like, oh, my doctor said I'm fine. Well, maybe that's not really what the doctor said at all. So, look at using my chart, have that communication back and forth with all of your providers that are on the team, the attorney, the financial planner. Almost everything is in a vault these days. You mentioned banking and like credit cards. There's different technology solutions to get alerts so that if dad has dementia and I had a client go by a motorhome, he totally should not have been doing that, right? Because we're looking at him going into memory care. So families, you have to know about aging. You have to understand dementia. You cannot have your head in the sand, because how is he going to get out of buying that motorhome when he's on the list soon to go into memory care? No one understood how demented he really was. We had a situation again in the last year where the car dealers were coming to the assisted living facility, picking up my client, taking them back to the car dealership and selling them a car. And each time we had to go back and reverse the deal based on the fact that he didn't have capacity, and the dealers don't want, egg on their face. But it's a pretty, I wouldn't say sleazy, but I would say you got to be careful. Stuff like that really does happen. I had a client that, again, there's so much dementia, and families, they don't understand dementia. They think that their parent is doing fine because they talk to them for 8 minutes every couple of weeks. Well, a dementia patient can really hide and cover pretty well for short periods of time. But I had a dementia client who managed to go buy a house. He was still cognitive enough to like track down realtors. 2 realtors fired him because they're like, I'm not comfortable, because they spent time with him, and they're like, I'm not comfortable selling you a house. But the 3rd realtor, no problem, Larry, I'll sell you this 2-bedroom condo. So trying to undo a real estate property contract was tricky.
And just one more topic before we kind of go in the direction of wrapping up. Caregiver burnout. Let's go back over that again. Caregiver resentment, and how that there are support groups out there. Just give us your bird's eye view of all that.
So again, it sort of boils down to the following things: family communication and family meetings, understanding what your loved one has. Most of my clients have dementia. When families come to me and their loved one is literally in the mid to late stages of dementia, and the family still has no idea why dad is acting like he is, or they get mad at him because he repeats himself, or they just don't understand why he can't set up his own medications or why he's losing weight. So when parents end up with a child that when parents have a child that ends up with a special needs diagnosis, parents research the crap out of that diagnosis. They know that diagnosis forward and backwards, but yet adult kids don't do the same thing when dad gets that diagnosis of dementia or has a major stroke. So communication.
I think though, what I've experienced with my clients and somewhat with family in the past is that nobody really wants to talk about it. They really don't want to admit where they are in their arc of dementia, if cognitive impairment, and it's really complicated. So with a child, you feel as the parent that you have to take that responsibility, but as a child helping out the parent, you want to know, but it's a fine line between upsetting them.
Yes, and then we've got that arc of denial, right? Well, what do you mean dad can't, manage his own medications or pay his own bills? Or how come dad went and bought that motorhome? He's a retired Army general. Why would he make such a stupid decision, right? So there's just that lack of understanding of the disease, some denial, heavy denial on the family's part. That's why we've got to communicate, because we know that 58% of adult children will end up thrust into the role of family caregiving without ever having a family meeting about the what ifs of aging. So communication, understanding the disease, and to avoid family caregiver burnout and resentment, we have to address these issues in the infancy stages, because the longer that caregiver is taking care of someone without and getting frustrated with their siblings or their spouses, that's when we see that resentment and caregiver burnout. Caregiving can be, and aging can be, an actually positive experience if we have an aging plan, if we know what care we're going to need, what we can afford, where we're going to live, what are the resources that we have, who's going to do what to help us meet our goals. We have to start that communication process now, because I say this literally all the time. I probably said it on the other 2 podcasts. The people who had major strokes last Tuesday didn't wake up thinking, I think I'm going to have a major stroke. No. And guess what? If you don't have your grab and go binder stuff put together, then that's what makes you into a crisis family, because now everybody has to drop what they're doing and figure out, okay, now what do we do with dad? How much money does he have? Does he even have long-term care insurance? And is he a full code or a do not resuscitate? I don't know. We never talked about stuff like that.
So Annalee, let's wrap so we can keep these nice and short so people can enjoy them and not be too overwhelmed. Next time we're going to be talking about finances. We'll talk about downsizing and finances and timing of that. One of the things I've noticed lately is if somebody is like at the end stage or they've already passed away, somebody has to drop what they're doing and empty out the house. So we'll talk about that next time. But Annalee, thank you so much. This is a lot of fun, and I look forward to our final presentation next time.
Thank you so much, Ed, for being on the podcast as well. And I like the back and forth, and hopefully the the listeners are saying, oh my goodness, there's a lot to this aging thing. We should probably figure out what we're going to do.
Tell them how to contact you, and then I'll tell them how to contact my firm.
You bet. So families, you can reach out to me at www.carerightinc. That's CARERIGHTINC.com. I've got a calendar on there. You can schedule a 30-minute consult and we'll go from there.
And as for myself, at www, obviously, probate-florida spelled out.com, probate-florida.com. You'll see everything. We've got tons of articles and information about our attorneys in the office. And the phone number is 239-435-1533. And I look forward to seeing you all.
Excellent.
Take care.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, Annalee.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Care Right podcast. We hope today's discussion has provided you with valuable insights. If so, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our podcast with others who might find it helpful. Remember, Care Right is more than just a podcast. It's a community dedicated to supporting family caregivers with comprehensive care planning, crisis management, and resources for every stage of aging. Stay connected with us for future episodes as we continue to explore essential topics in aging planning, elder care, and financial planning. Until next time, take care, plan wisely, and remember, you're not alone in your caregiving journey.